Hey guys, it's Tinea Taylor from Kiss, and on International Women's Day we are supporting the Female Leads Disrupt Your Feed campaign. They have carried out a study with data spanning over 5 years. It proves that the simple intervention of proactively following positive role models on social media can combat many of the negative mental health impacts associated with passive scrolling. So following positive female role models can inspire higher career aspirations and more positive outcomes, allowing girls to discover real women with exciting, aligned personal interests and ambitions. So without further ado, I am joined by influencers Alex Light and Joanna Kenny, who only focus on putting positive messages out there. How are you both?
Hello. Good.
Hi.
That was an intro, wasn't it?
Love that, yeah.
I want to dive in and say that the community that you have brought together has created like a movement, both of you, which is like a huge force for good, I feel. Tell us about what you do and what your ambitions are going forward, Alex.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really delighted to be here. My goal with everything I do online and with the book that I've written is to create a safe space for women where they can help push back against beauty standards and just try and learn to be more confident and more comfortable in their own skin.
Yep.
And that was born out of me, out of my own experience of suffering with eating disorders and having a really low and very negative body image. So now I try and, with being mega cringe, make the world a little bit nicer for young girls.
Amazing. Joanna, what about yourself?
So I first started sharing about acne. It was a community where everyone was showing their skin and, you know, highlighting the fact that we have pores, we have scars, we have pigmentation. And I really struggled with acne for 15 years and I had it severely across my face for the whole duration of that time. And it got to a point where I just could not conceal it any longer. I was actually exhausted by it. So I wanted to be part of a community. I couldn't believe that when I first discovered the hashtag acne positivity, it already got like 3 million uses. And I wanted to create a similar safe space where people could come, they could talk about skin openly, see it in a different light as well. I remember when I first started seeing it on other people and thinking, actually, they look beautiful with their acne exposed. And it really made me realise that I could too. So that was like the inspiration of having a space like that. And once I started accepting my acne, I thought, God, it's like a superpower, this. And I thought, okay, what else can I accept? And I think my whole thing is, yes, challenging beauty standards, because that's really important to me as a former beauty therapist, but also kind of giving people the tools that they need to challenge their own insecurities, because I feel like it's great having this empowering message and that's what we need to see on social media, but people don't necessarily know how to go from A to B. How did you get that confident? Because I always get messages like,
how did you start? It's always, I feel like with anything, it's always the starting process. It's like, how do I just get my foot off the block?
Yeah, exactly. So trying to create a bit more of an education in confidence, which is kind of new.
Yeah.
Learning myself at the same time.
I was going to say, because you're learning as you're teaching.
Exactly.
I would imagine, because you won't have the answers straight away.
Yeah, it's all just personal experience, and also very much explaining that as well, and making sure people realise that I can give you a certain amount of help, but ultimately it is definitely your own journey. As cliche as that all sounds, it really is a journey. But when you start doing it for yourself, you realise how powerful you are, and you've always kind of perhaps believed that you needed someone else's assistance or professional advice to do certain things. But when you actually start going on that journey on your own, because you have to do it on your own, but the space I think that both Alex and I have created is you're not alone doing it. But you have to do it on your own.
You have to start on your own, but there is a community of people that you're like, oh my gosh, you were just like me. How has social media had like a negative effect on your mental health personally? Like, what happened?
I mean, for me personally, first of all, I want to say that you do a great job, actually, Joanna. Like, you are, and I'm not just saying this, you're one of my favourite people to follow on Instagram, like a really powerful force for good. But when I was in the depths of my eating disorder, social media was something that really fueled my insecurities and my illness, really. I was using social media as a form of motivation or inspiration, and it was actually just really getting me deeper and deeper into the eating disorder. I was only following women who fit the standard of beauty, the very narrow standard of beauty that we can all conjure up in our heads, we can all envision, and I was only following women like that with the goal of eventually me looking like that. And of course I don't look like those women. I don't have the same DNA as those women. I'm not built to look like those women. I could never quite achieve it, and it was leaving me feeling more and more inadequate, more and more like a failure, and I was getting further into a cycle of just self-loathing, self-hatred, and I really struggled to get out of it.
Did you find that like unfollowing certain accounts was like, oh, I don't need to see that? Because I do that on my social media. I'm like, look, if something doesn't align with my energy and my vibe, I'm like, that's got to go. Even if people I know and they may feel offended of like, you unfollowed me, you have to do that for yourself. So have you found that like decluttering helped?
Hugely. I think it's so powerful when you become mindful of what you're consuming and of just your scroll, your daily scroll. It can have a huge effect on you. And curating my feed was one of the most powerful things in my journey, for lack of a better word, to more body confidence and more self-acceptance, 1,000%.
It's really the only media you do have some form of control over of what you're exposed to. I know that it is flawed, but there are so many more ways with social media that we can adapt it to protect ourselves. Like there's timers on there, isn't there, of like when it kicks you off when you've spent your
I need to do that.
Time.
Not gonna lie.
You've got to have the willpower to turn it on first. But yeah, no, there's definitely like systems in place to help you.
Social media really cultivates like this environment for comparison, and humans are hardwired to compare anyway, and then that's really drilled into us from a very early age. Our achievements, our everything, our goals are all measured up against each other with like exams and classes and whatever. But then you've got social media which becomes like a breeding ground for comparison. Everything, you're pitted against people constantly. You're seeing things constantly that are inducing these feelings of inadequacy.
Or like you say, creating what you're seeing, which is really helpful, and I have done that. There's so much to it that it's not all bad. It's just about trying your hardest to navigate it and to make it the happy space you need it to be. Like we shouldn't be closing the app and feeling worse about ourselves afterwards. It should be a place where we go for joy.
Well, it's filtering, but it's filtering in a positive way. So it's not like the face filters, it's filtering like what you see and what you're taking in. Because I want to know, how do you feel about the impact of seeing like this narrow view of what achievement is, whereas like you have to have a degree, or if you don't have a degree you haven't achieved anything, or beauty standards, health standards, interests day in day out? How do you feel about that?
Is that not just like an amplified version of society anyway? It's just like out there online as opposed to actually what the expectations are of women especially anyway. And I just feel like perhaps on social media it's just more in plain sight.
It's heightened so much. And even when we were going back to talking about filtering, then there's the explore page. It's the explore page. And do you know what? I tend to not go on it too much.
I don't really.
I do, because I've hacked my algorithm.
Have you?
I get
Tell all.
dog posts and food posts, and it's fantastic.
Oh, how did you do that? Do you know what? There was a woman, I can't remember her name, a journalist, and she tweeted and said, take a screenshot of your explore page and I'll tell you what book you should read. So I went on my explore page and it was all wedding dresses, because I always talk about how much I want to get married and I'm single. No, I'm being serious. And I tweeted it to her and I think she just got overwhelmed and I didn't get my book recommendation. But my best friends were like, you've cracked your algorithm, and I didn't realise. And they were like, look at your page. And it was like fitness, which I'm heavily into, and wedding dresses.
Wow.
People, strangers wedding dresses. So maybe I've cracked it too.
I love that.
I mean, that is a good thing about social media. The algorithm can it's kind of bittersweet, really.
Yeah.
It's a sword, because while if you seek out certain content, it will continue to feed you that content.
Yeah.
And if you're in an unhealthy state of mind, then you will continue to get this, like, you know, this
Mm-hmm.
toxic content. But you can, you know, the algorithm is sensitive and you can manipulate it to what you want to see. And if you have the goal of, you know, creating a more positive space online, then you can manipulate your algorithm to wedding
Yeah.
dresses
Yeah.
or dogs.
It's definitely brought me in good places sometimes. Like I have found, you know, people that share similar content to mine,
Yeah.
or, you know, or holiday inspo or whatever. Like it definitely does.
It's me on a beach. Let's talk about young people though, because we all have like young people in our lives, younger sisters, brothers, we have nieces. Like, how do you think social media, in particular, like the shiny Instagram, affects them?
It is quite scary, because when we're, you know, with young people, like in our formative years, we're super vulnerable, and we don't necessarily have a solid sense of self yet. I mean, I think I'm still developing. Like,
Honey, I'm
know.
in my 30s. I'm still learning now.
So I think, yeah, it's a super vulnerable place to be, and you're influenced and you're moulded a lot more easily at that point. So I do think there has to be some safeguarding in place to protect younger people, because I mean, already the statistics are horrendous about young people using social media and cyberbullying and like what that's leading to. So I do think, safeguarding is definitely the way to go.
So let's say teenage years, right? Say like 13 to 18. What piece of advice would you give them?
I'd say to continue to assess and monitor your usage of social media, and monitor how what you're consuming is making you feel, and really take stock of that, and don't let that slip, because it's super important. And the second thing is take everything you see with a pinch of salt. Like I have witnessed firsthand, you know, people editing their photos to a point that they don't even
Of no
look.
return.
Exactly.
I'm like, who even are you?
Unrecognizable,
Who even are you?
And I mean, I get it. I used to do it as well. You know, like I downloaded Photoshop before the editing apps even existed. I did it as well, but I just think we have to be careful and really aware of what we're consuming. And I love the quote, even the girl in the photo doesn't look like the girl in the photo. And I just think it's like so important to keep that in mind with what you're scrolling, and don't let this, you know, highlight reel of someone's life.
Yes.
Don't compare that to the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, the messy of yours, because it's just not accurate. It's not an accurate depiction of someone's life, and you're good enough as you are.
Yes.
Yes.
Love that.
That's the main sentiment. You're good enough as you are already. And be yourself. I think that's something I wish I had been told when I was younger. And I think for a long while I was, and I didn't realise, I don't think I really had a very good view of like the outside world for quite a long time. I was very much very self-absorbed.
Because you were probably in your head.
I was.
No, but you're probably in your head, not in an arrogant way, but in a like insecure way.
Yeah,
like you can get out of it.
No, and so when I realised that, you know, we talk about discovering, you know, who we are, I would just say that that's just such an important quest, and that should be encouraged more from a young age.
So let's flip it then. If you had one piece of advice for the parents of teenage girls on social media, what would it be? One piece of advice each.
Well, I would say, Joanna mentioned education, and I say alongside that, is to create an environment that's super open, and where they feel reassured that they can come to you and talk to you and have an open and transparent conversation about what they are experiencing on social media, and just allow them to express, I guess, rather than try to police what they're doing on there. Just allowing them to be able to be super honest with you, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, I'm struggling with that one, because it's really hard, because I think parents are doing the best they can with the tools that they have. And there's so many pressures coming from every direction, but I think where social media... Is it social media or filters?
Social media.
Social media is concerned. I think there's an element of expression that I think is really important when people use this app. And I would say that I've come out of my shell more through being on there. And it was through doing that where I learned to actually like who I was as a person. So I think to allow that freedom and let them, just let them do them.
I love that.
Let them do them.
Yeah.
And let them be able to speak to you. I love that. Alex and Joanna, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining me. And happy
Thank
International
you.
Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.